Tycoon returns with Mistress, finds wife and triplets inside the prison he helped build. "Welcome back to Seoul," says Choi Owne at his shoulder, her smile sharpened by sleep and strategy. "They're ready to adore you. They're ready to test me," he replies, and it's half a joke, half a truth. On the tarmac, the air has the smell of rain that changed its mind. Convoy waits. Assistants converge with tablets and clipped voices. You watch him nod, receiving updates like beads on a string. The ribbon cutting at 10:30, the press conference at 11, the investor luncheon at 1. The name of the place hangs everywhere. Hanseong Correctional Center, printed on banners that curve like polite smiles. "You're trending already," Owne murmurs in the car, angling her phone toward him. A headline calls him visionary of public safety. Another calls him the man who modernized confinement. "Confinement doesn't sell," he says softly. "Call it rehabilitation." "We did," she says and squeezes his hand. "Relax, Min-jae. This is your triumph." Outside the tinted windows, Seoul flickers past. Apartment towers, convenience stores, an old woman setting out flowers by a gate. He watches all of it as if memorizing evidence. He has been away for 2 years, and the city acts like it can't decide whether to punish or forgive him for it. His phone buzzes. The name on the screen is just Father. He hesitates, then answers. "Appa, stay on script." The older voice orders, smooth and iron. "No promises we haven't costed. No apologies we haven't negotiated." "I know. And don't be sentimental. These people respect steel, not softness." The line clicks dead. The silence after is a cut that doesn't bleed. Not right away. Owne watches him, her eyeliner perfect, her concern designed. He'll come around when he sees the numbers. "It isn't about him coming around," Min-jae says, and looks out at the city again. The convoy crests a hill, and then you see it. The prison he helped build. Glass and stone, curved edges where old prisons used to have corners. A facade that pretends the sky can pass through it. There are saplings along the entrance road, their thin trunks braced with spotless ropes. Police guide traffic. Media vans cluster like geese. A small group of protesters gathers at the far edge of the security line. Their signs a chorus you can't yet read. One voice breaks through. "People are not profit." Another, "No cages for cash." The syllables run across the asphalt and brush his shoes. "They'll make good television," Owne says without heat. "We've arranged a tour to show the humane features. Light air, education modules, and the new maternal infant unit." "Is not a selling point," he says, too quickly, and then throttles his voice down. "It's a responsibility." Her eyes soften for a heartbeat. "Then show them you care." Inside the lobby, the floor gleams like still water. A sculpture in brushed metal, meant to represent renewal, curves toward the skylight. Staff in pale uniforms try to look invisible. The director of the facility, Kang Dae-sik, approaches with a bow held at exactly the right angle. "Chairman Park," Kang says, "an honor. We are ready to demonstrate excellence." "I'm not chairman," Min-jae says, reflexively. "Only CEO." Kang smiles as if he has already forgotten the correction. "We followed your specifications precisely. AI-enabled monitoring, vocational classrooms, on-site legal aid, a dedicated wing for mothers and infants. We believe we have built not only a facility, but a philosophy." "How many occupied beds today?" Min-jae asks. 32% at opening," Kang replies. "Projected to reach 60 by the end of Q3. "Don't say it that way during the tour," Owne says, velvet over steel. "We'll focus on programs, not percentages." "Of course," Kang says and bows again. You walk with them, passing security gates that hum softly, cameras that blink like patient animals. Through a pane of glass, you catch a glimpse of a classroom. Clean desks, a whiteboard with the words, "Getting your GD," scrawled on it in an optimistic hand. A man in a khaki uniform wipes the board and smiles too brightly when he notices the VIPs, as if hope is something you perform to keep. They move to the auditorium where the press wait. Microphones gleam like tiny spears. The MC begins an introduction that tastes like sugar, and the applause arrives on cue. Somewhere behind the stage, you can sense the rhythm of the whole event. The script, the timings, the photos that will populate the afternoon news. Say the line about dignity that doesn't bend, whispers Owne. It focus groups well. He nods, but his eyes are elsewhere. He looks up through the glass corridor that connects the administrative wing to the clinical area. He can see signs suspended from the ceiling like floating labels. Medical, family services, maternal infant unit. The letters are simple, benevolent. He feels something pull at him. Nothing as dramatic as fate, just a thread of curiosity and a weight he can't shake. Mr. Park, the MC calls. Soul welcomes you home. He steps forward. The podium is warm from the last hands. Lights burn at angles meant to flatter. Cameras crackle softly as they breathe. Thank you, he begins, and his voice is steady, the way he learned to make it. 2 years ago, we began this project with a question. Can we build a place that keeps the public safe without stealing a person's chance to start again? Today, we open a facility designed to treat people as more than their worst day. As he speaks, you notice his right hand, hidden just behind the podium, rub the base of his ring finger, an old habit without a ring to explain it. He pauses only a fraction too long before the next sentence. With classrooms, medical care, counseling. With transparency that allows us to be accountable. Applause. A flash of cameras. Somewhere at the edge of the crowd, the protesters raise their signs again. The word prophet stutters across the lenses, then disappears. After the speech, he descends the stage and the handshakes begin. You watch him move from one expectation to the next. Council member, investor, journalist. A mother whose son is inside for the first time and who asks, in a voice that was brave until it had to be used, will he be safe here? He looks her in the eyes. He will have a chance here, he says, and the words land between promise and prayer. Kong leads them to the ceremonial ribbon. The scissors shine. A red line stretches a small eternity across the doorway to the main corridor. Someone counts down. 3 to 1. The cut is clean. The fabric sighs and falls. People cheer like something has been freed. He smiles for the cameras. The smiles in the photos will look like victory. You, standing where you are, can see it also looks like relief, and relief is a confession that something has been heavy for a long time. They begin the tour. A skylit corridor reveals the architecture's most careful tricks. How to make cells look like rooms. How to make fences look like lines drawn in air. Passing the infirmary, he hears the ordinary sounds of a clinic. A printer spitting paper, a nurse asking for a chart, the soft whine of a machine calibrating itself. It is also normal, that is the unsettling part. Just the highlights, Owne urges, catching the director's pace with her own. We have investors waiting. The highlights, Kong repeats, and gestures to a window that overlooks a courtyard with a single tree standing like a promise someone intends to keep. We call this the reflection garden. Min-jae lingers. And the family services wing? Kang's smile holds. Yes, of course. This way. As they turn, a guard passes with a clear plastic bin of folded baby blankets. Small printed clouds stacked like weather. Practical, unglamorous detail. The kind that stays with you. Owne sees him see it. Humanity plays well, she whispers. Let them capture that. He nods, but you can tell the nod is not for the cameras. He's thinking of what it means to carry something small and fragile past steel doors. He's thinking of the way a system can swallow a person whole and still call itself efficient. His phone buzzes again. Another alert, another meeting, another offer that will make numbers climb in odd diagonals. He doesn't look. He pockets the sound. After the tour, he says to Kong, I want to visit every wing. No shortcuts. Of course, Kong answers, the slightest tremor behind the words. Every wing. You keep watching him walk, flanked by promise and calculation. He holds himself like a man in control, but his eyes keep drifting to the signs, to the doors, to the lives just beyond the glass. The city outside is the same as it was this morning. He is not. He wouldn't admit that yet, not to you, not to himself. But you can feel it, the way first rain hangs in the air before it breaks. How the body knows a storm a moment before the sky does. Shall we? Owne asks, the heel of her shoe clicking a polite rhythm. Yes, he says, and faces the corridor that will take him deeper into the place he built. Você diz. Certo, agora tu como narrador e storyteller desenvolva a história sem marcos com o nome de cada tópico que for desenvolve. Me conte sobre o tópico tu com dialogo como esse faço espectador. Sempre lembrando de desenvolver com muita emoção. Com muitos sentimentos de forma que a estrutura de narrativa utiliza uma linha temporal linear de modo o espectador sentir o que o personagem está sentindo amigos. Com 6.000 characters o chat GPT diz. Penso por 25 you meet her, before the lights come on. The unit is gray and quiet, holding its breath between the last night feeding and the first footsteps of day. A wall clock clicks like a tiny hammer. In a crib the size of a suitcase, a baby sighs, then another answers, and then the third finds his brother's sound and joins. 3 small voices, one mother. Hannah is already awake. Her hair is pulled back with a snagged elastic. Her sleeves are rolled to the elbows. Good morning, my stars, she whispers, her breath fogging the chill just above them. We're still here. We're together. That's enough for now. She moves with the economy of someone who has been timed. Bottle, bottle, breast, burp. She counts under her breath, a rhythm she learned faster than she learned her own fear. 2 ounces for you, Minjun. Slow, slow. Your chest, we're watching it. Her palm rests over the fragile rise and fall. And you, Sujun, greedy as ever. The third, Daejun, fusses until she shifts him closer and hums something that isn't a song so much as a vow. A guard passes the window and the slit of light narrows, then widens again. From the corridor, keys murmur. The babies blink in unison as if the room had nodded. Lee Hannah, says a voice at the door, soft to not startle the newborns. It's Nurse Cian, square-shouldered and kind in a way that sinks through your bones. Vitals at 6. Yoon from Family Services at 7. Hannah nods. Thank you. Her voice is sanded calm. She tucks a frayed cloth under a tiny chin and kisses a temple that smells like milk and soap. We're ready. She wasn't always this person, not in form if not in nature. There was a time of spreadsheets, clean blouses, the satisfaction of columns balancing under her hands. I like numbers because they don't lie, she once told a friend, laughing. People do. Numbers just wait. Now the numbers that matter are on plastic bracelets. Her ID, their IDs, times of feedings, milliliters recorded in neat rows on a clipboard that hangs like a judge above the crib. She signs her name under every line. The name steadies her. At 6, Nurse Cian wheels in the cart with the electronic monitor. The cuff squeezes her arm. The thermometer beeps. How's your pain? The nurse asks, pulling a stool closer. Any dizziness? Headaches. Just tired, Hannah says. She shifts Minjun to her shoulder, listens for that ragged catch in his breath. The nurse leans in, stethoscope warm. They are both quiet, the way people are when they are counting the same thing. Better than yesterday, Cian says, and you feel the room exhale. Cardiology will reassess this week. Keep him upright after feeds. I know you know. I know, Hannah says. She knows too much, not enough, everything at once. The 7, Ms. Yoon arrives with the file. The folder is thick, its edges bruised. She wears a cardigan like armor and greets the babies first, as if announcing her intentions to the room. Look at you 3, she says, the professional cheerfulness threaded with real warmth, growing on schedule to terrify us all. Hannah smiles without showing teeth. They like an audience. Yoon sits. Papers sigh. There's a hearing tomorrow about temporary placement, she says. She doesn't make it gentle because gentleness would be another cruelty. We'll argue to keep them with you in the unit pending your appeal. The director will push for a transfer to a foster setting. The foundation, she stops, glances at the babies, is making noises about support options that aren't about support. Hannah's hands still. They want to take them. They want a headline that looks like help, Owne says. We'll remind the court what actual help looks like. And my appeal? Hannah asks. The documents. Did the court accept the new exhibits? Some, Owne says carefully. The judge wants corroboration on the email deletions. If we can show chain of custody for those backups, it strengthens everything. Hannah looks at the clipboard, then at the small faces that don't know any word for tomorrow. I kept records, she says, as if confessing a superstition. Everything I touched, I kept notes. If someone changed numbers, there was a shadow left behind. Numbers always leave shadows. Owne studies her. You were an accountant in the foundation, she says, though they both know this because saying it out loud feels like standing up straight. You flagged discrepancies in contractor invoices, right? I flagged what didn't add up, Hannah says. Then the audits disappeared. And then the police had a neat story with my name as the spine. She meets Owne's eyes. I didn't do this. I will not let these boys grow up thinking I did. Owne leans forward. Tell me what you want, she says, and the question is plain and enormous. I want my name back, Hannah says. The words don't tremble. I want the truth to be louder than their money. I want my sons to know that when the world came to take them, I made a wall with my body and my voice. I want out, yes, but not empty. I want them out of me, too. This shame that isn't mine. I want to work again, to pay my own rent, to buy my own formula, to decide where we live. I want to sleep without dreaming of cold doors. Owne nods once, a contract sealed without ink. Then that's what we're working for. There's a knock at the door jamb, almost apologetic. Officer Ji-hoon steps in halfway, hat tucked under his arm. He is the kind of careful that makes a person look smaller than they are. Ms. Lee, he says. Mail. He holds out an envelope, the kind you only see in textbooks now, with a real stamp and a crooked line of pen ink. Hannah takes it, her name in someone else's handwriting. The return address is a public defender's office. Inside, a photocopy of an email header, dates, a subject line that had once been nothing, now everything. A note clipped to the top. Found this on a retained server. Working on admissibility. K. Her throat works around something that wants to be a sob and refuses. Thank you, she tells Ji-hoon, and the gratitude sits between them like a small, hot stone. He nods but doesn't leave. Ms. Lee, he says softer. There'll be a tour today. VIPs, press. We'll keep them away from this wing, but sometimes cameras find their way. He looks at the babies and then at the floor. If anyone tries to use you for a picture, you look at me, okay? The shame that isn't hers flares anyway. The thought of being a prop in someone else's redemption arc. She squares her shoulders. I won't be quiet if they point a lens at my sons. Good, Ji-hoon says, and the word is a small shield. When he's gone, Owne taps the paper. This helps, she says. We'll file an urgent addendum. Can you tell me again what happened the week before the arrest? Chronologically, I know we've gone over it, but linear helps the judge. Linear, Hannah repeats and takes a breath. Monday, I sent my report on vendor 11B, billing hours that didn't exist. Tuesday, my access got locked for security upgrades. Wednesday, Owne asked me to release a payment without the second signature. Just this once. I refused. Thursday, the audit folder I kept on my desktop vanished. Friday morning, security asked for my badge at the door. Friday afternoon, police met me at my desk with a warrant that might as well have had my reflection printed on it. And that night, Owne asks gently, that night I went home and packed a hospital bag, Hannah says, because the twins. She stops, smiles down at the three faces, became triplets without telling anyone, and they were due any minute. Okay, Owne says, making notes that will become sentences that will become an argument strong enough to hold 3 lives. We'll put it just like that. A buzzer sounds in the corridor. The unit wakes into the day. Carts roll, doors click. Someone laughs too loudly to prove they can. Hannah changes a diaper with the skill of a field medic and the tenderness of a prayer. You're not evidence, she murmurs to them. You're proof. She tucks the defender's letter inside the cover of a slim notebook. Blank, ordinary. She keeps it under the mattress because she trusts paper more than she trusts walls. She writes a single line. Friday afternoon, badge taken, audit folder gone. 3 witnesses. Numbers don't lie. People do. We will be louder. Do you need anything? Owne asks, gathering her things. The question is professional. The eyes are not. Coffee, Hannah says, and then, because she is allowed to want bigger things in small ways, and a promise you won't leave before the hearing starts. I'll be there, Owne says, even if they try to move the time. They will, Hannah says. Move times, move doors, move rules. Then we'll move with them, Owne says, and we'll nail it all down where they can't lift it again. After Owne leaves, Hannah lifts each baby and counts. Fingers, breaths, the spaces between. She studies their faces like maps of a future she refuses to surrender. Listen, she tells them, and her voice is the quiet of a stream under ice. There will be people today with smiles that aren't for us. There will be cameras and words and the smell of new paint pretending to be kindness. But we don't owe them a story they can digest. We owe each other the truth. Her own hunger starts up, dull, familiar. She takes the food tray when it comes and eats with the practical gusto of someone training for a long race. The clock climbs. The day gathers itself. Sometime before 9, a cheer erupts from far away, muffled by doors and architecture. It sounds like a wave hitting glass. Hannah doesn't look toward it. She looks down, at a face that crumples, then eases, at a tiny fist unfurling like a new word. We are not props, she tells him. We are not a brand. We are a family. In the corridor, footsteps stop at the window. A shadow lingers, then moves on. She feels the press of that gaze and refuses to turn toward it until she's ready. When she does, she will be the one to decide what happens to her face. You realize, watching her, that this is what wanting looks like when it is stripped of wishful thinking and polished by need. She wants clear things that can be written down and filed, stamped and honored. She wants safety measured in heartbeats, and justice measured in documents, and dignity that doesn't ask permission. She wants out. But first, she wants foundation, to stand on something that won't slide when power leans on it. Later, Owne murmurs, palm light on his sleeve. The investors. 5 minutes, he says. Kang's smile holds but tightens at the edges. Of course, this wing is sensitive. They pass under the sign. The corridor is quieter here, the air calibrated cooler. A nurse pushing an empty bassinet pauses and bows. The cart carries the clean scent of powder and laundry. Behind a pane of glass, 3 cribs line a wall like little boats moored against storm. Hannah hears them before she sees them. Men's shoes on polished floor, the hush of expensive fabric. She looks up. Her face doesn't change. Or maybe it does, but only in the way steel remembers fire. He stops, so suddenly the people behind have to adjust. The glass becomes a mirror for an instant, his face layered over hers. Then the angle changes and he sees her and 3 small shapes breathing in rhythm. He puts a hand to the glass without meaning to, a child's instinct. Hannah, he says, but the glass eats her name and feeds it back to him. She doesn't move to meet him. She stays where she is, one palm steadying a bottle, the other splayed across a tiny back. Her eyes meet his. He sees the question there, but not the one he expects. Not why or how could you. The question is, what will you do now that you can see? Who is she? A junior aide whispers to Kong, too loud for the silence. Kong clears his throat. An inmate, Ms. Lee. She's part of our, not part of any showcase. Nurse Cian cuts in, emerging from a side door with a clipboard like a shield. This unit is closed to the media. No media, Owne says easily, smile toggled to charm. Just a quick look. Human interest. 5 seconds and we're gone. Hannah lifts her chin. Don't put my sons in your story, she says. Her voice slides through the small speaker at the base of the glass. It's even unadorned. You feel your spine lengthen listening to it. Min-jae flinches at the plural. He breathes twice too fast. Can we? He looks to Seon, then to the intercom button like a supplicant. Can I speak with her? Privately. Nothing is private in here, Seon says, not unkind. But you can speak. Uniseo angles her body toward the inevitable camera that has found them despite instructions. Jihoon steps into its line like a door sliding shut. No photos, he says. The word no has weight when he says it. The lens lowers, grudging. Hannah, Min-jae says again, now through the intercom. His voice arriving in the room slightly tinny, as if embarrassed to be here. It's me. She looks at him, a long breath. I know who you are. He swallows. The babies snuffle, soft punctuation. Are they? He doesn't know how to ask the question without cutting them both. He tries to find a sentence with fewer edges and fails. Are they well? Two are, she says. One is trying. He nods, useless, as if that nod could change a diagnosis. I'm sorry, he says, and the word startles even him. It's not the polished sorry that costs nothing. It's the one that opens a floor and shows how far a person can fall. For what? She asks. He could say, for the signatures I didn't read, for the days I didn't come back, for building a place that made a home out of no. He says, for not being here. You were somewhere, she says. You were busy. Her eyes flick to Uniseo like a knife taking a measure, then return to him. Was she worth it? Uniseo's smile stiffens, then returns, brighter, as if a glare could be gloss. This is inappropriate, she begins. Hannah doesn't look at her. You don't get to narrate me, she says, and for the first time, a small heat touches her voice. Kang steps in, palms up, soothing and false. Let's move along. There's a schedule. Not yet, Min-jae says, and his tone makes Kang blink. He presses his palm to the glass again, lighter this time. Hannah, he asks very quietly, the way he once asked her what color couch to buy, whether to call his mother on Chuseok or send flowers instead. Do you hate me? She considers. The babies breathe. Somewhere down the hall, a phone rings and rings. I don't have time, she says finally. Hate is a rich woman's hobby. He nearly laughs, a brittle sound that lands at his feet. You always did turn a knife into a sentence. You always did bring a sentence into a room like a gift, she returns. Some of them were nice. This one wasn't. Uniseo, recovering her poise, leans towards Seon. We need to present the new mother-infant protocols. It would be a shame for the public to miss. We don't perform care, Seon says, gaze flat. We provide it. Yoon appears at the far end of the corridor as if the building formed her from resolve. She walks quickly, cardigan going to battle. Ms. Lee, she says through the speaker. Family Services confirmed the hearing time. We're on for tomorrow at 9. I'll file the addendum today. Thank you, Hannah says, and something in her shoulders drops the width of a sigh. Min-jae turns to Yoon as if to a person who might explain the rules of a game he has been pretending not to play. What do you need? He asks. What will help her? Yoon looks at him like a human, not a headline. Truth that can stand in a courtroom, she says. No spin, no favors. If you have access to records, logs, anything, now would be a good time to remember where you put your conscience. He nods once, and you feel it settle somewhere real. I'll get what I can. He faces Hannah again. Can I do anything now? Today? Don't make a speech about me, Hannah says. Don't put your name on my oxygen. Don't touch what keeps them breathing. Her gaze softens by an atom. And tell your people to stop trying to take them for a press release. Uniseo's smile falters then, for a heartbeat so small you could lie about seeing it. No one is taking anyone, she says. Our foundation provides resources when the state falls short. Your foundation provides photographers, Yoon says, crisp. Resources have receipts. Jihoon's radio crackles. Media shift to South Corridor. A voice reports. He steps back, giving them a pocket of quiet that feels loaned. Why didn't you tell me? Min-jae asks, and because the question is too big, he breaks it into child-sized pieces. Why didn't you call? Text. Anything? Hannah's mouth curves, not into a smile. From where? With what phone? Between contractions? Before or after they put cuffs on a pregnant woman because the paperwork said I looked like a number? He winces like the glass just turned into a mirror again. I didn't know, he says, and it sounds smaller than the morning. You didn't look, she says. There's a difference. One of the babies makes a sound like a hinge. She picks him up, tucks him under her chin, and something in Min-jae's face breaks in a barely visible way. He touches his ringless finger again, a ghost reflex. Are they? He cannot leave it alone. Are they mine? Silence lands so cleanly you hear it. Sian's head tilts. Yoon's pen freezes. Even Owne stops arranging her expression. Hannah doesn't blush or bluster. They are mine, she says, and the pronoun is a shield. Then, after the beat that proves she chooses her words, not the other way around, I told the truth then, and I will tell it under oath. She looks down at the baby and back at him. The court can order a test. Until then, they are mine. He nods once as if someone has just read him a diagnosis. Okay, he says. Okay. Kong exhales the breath he has been strangling. We really must proceed, he says, a little desperate now. Mr. Park, the press is waiting. Let them wait, he says, surprising himself with how much he means it. He leans closer to the speaker. Hannah, I can't fix. He stops, shakes his head. I can try to fix what I broke. I can start there. You can walk away from a photo, she says. Start with that. He straightens, turns to the small knot of expectation that trails him like a weather system. No photos here, he says to no one and everyone. This wing is off limits. He looks at Ji-hoon. If anyone ignores that, remove them. Ji-hoon nods, something like gratitude quick across his face. Owne moves in close, private voice for a public man. Your bleeding sympathy, she murmurs. They can smell it. Investors don't like blood. Then they can leave, he says, and the sentence surprises them both. He looks one last time at the glass. Hannah is standing in a square of quiet, 3 small worlds attached to her gravity. She doesn't wave. She doesn't soften. She meets his gaze and lets him stand in what he has built. He presses his palm to the glass, not as a plea but as a measure. I'll be back, he says. Bring documents, she replies. Not flowers. Mr. Park, one more quote about community reintegration? A reporter calls. He inhales, shapes the words, but they don't fit. We'll publish our post-release plan this quarter, he says, with independent oversight. Owne's fingers pinch his sleeve, tiny, elegant. Green room, she murmurs through a smile. Now, inside the small conference room, the air is cold and efficient. The door closes with the softness of money. What was that? She asks, still smiling for the walls. No photos? Independent oversight? Are you trying to put a leash on yourself? I saw her, he says. The 2 syllables land like a confession and a sentence. We all saw her, Owne replies. You turned a corridor into a theater. Investors hate surprise. Let them hate it, he says, and the line between posture and spine starts to blur. Her eyes flicker, then sharpen. Listen to me, you're not a volunteer. You're a CEO. We have a board call at 2. Your father will ask about projections, not pangs of conscience. Stay on the rails. After the luncheon, we'll draft a statement about supporting families. We'll offer the foundation's program. It will look good. We will look good. He laughs once, low. She asked me not to put my name on her oxygen. Of course she did, Owne says, as if describing the weather. She's angry, and she should be, at the person responsible for her situation. He looks up, slow. Which is who? The person who tried to stop the train you ride, she says softly. Do you think bad things happen in a vacuum? Someone made them happen. She steps closer, voice slipping from steel to velvet. Min-jae, I am trying to save you. Us. He steps back from the word us like it's a step that wasn't there. The phone on the table vibrates. Father, the screen declares. He answers. Appa, you're trending. The old man says, voice like clean glass. For the wrong reason. Park visits inmates instead of investors. Do you understand what that does to a stock on opening day? I understand that I built a place where a woman is raising newborns behind glass, he says. And we're selling it like a hotel. You built a business, his father snaps. And businesses require discipline. That wing exists because you negotiated the contract that paid for it. You don't apologize for supply when demand exists. What demand? He asks, and the question arrives like a stone through a window. The clause that penalizes the city if beds aren't filled? That demand. Silence. Then, measured, performance guarantees are standard. They are quotas, he says. He hears himself say it and knows something just crossed a line. His father's voice cools further. 2 o'clock. Board call. Say nothing sentimental. If the press asks about policies, refer to legal. If you deviate, I will remove you. The line dies. He stares at the blank screen until it starts to reflect his face. Good. Owne says softly. You needed a frame. I need the truth, he says. She tilts her head, a smile like a kept secret. Truth is a frame, too. Down the hall, Director Kong stands in the security room, eyes on a wall of feeds. One screen shows the corridor outside the maternal unit. He taps it with his pen. Mute that camera when VIPs pass, he tells the tech. No ambient audio. The tech hesitates. Policy. Policy is context, Kong says. We provide it. He steps back, folds his hands behind him. About Ms. Lee. Move her to medical observation for the afternoon. Full capacity in the unit, of course. Limit traffic. And have legal draft a memo about custody evaluation with the Foundation's partnership. Words like continuity and stability. Judges like those. The aide nods and leaves. Ji-hoon lingers in the doorway, his face doing its best impression of blank. Director, he says, the unit has protocols. Movement requires a medical reason. Kang's smile is patient. Find one. Ji-hoon doesn't move. The babies are stable. Moving them now is risk. Kang's patience cools. Officer Shin, you will execute instructions without editorial. Or I will find someone who can. When Ji-hoon is gone, Owne slips in, as if she belongs everywhere. He's shaky, she says, meaning Min-jae, and Kong nods as if she's handing him a weather report. The Foundation will file for temporary guardianship under your program, Kong says, already arranging the pieces. We present it as relief for a strained unit. Not yet, she replies. We float it. We let the idea soften the edges of public perception. Then, after the hearing, if the court hesitates, we're the solution waiting in a pressed suit. And Ms. Lee, he asks. She becomes a footnote, she says. A procedural necessity. If she cooperates, she gets a narrative of support. If she resists, she's unstable. Both can be spun. Kong considers her a moment. And Mr. Park? She smiles without warmth. He likes to believe he builds things for people. He forgets people have the untidiness of will. Will is easier to manage than a scandal, Kong murmurs. He opens a drawer and takes out a folder stamped internal. There are matters that must remain unseen. He flips it open. A list of vendors. Invoices that swell like bruises. A code in the margin, 11B. Who flagged that? She asks, though she knows. The knowledge glances between them like a sharp animal. She did, Kong says. Months ago, the audits vanished. Our upgrades did the rest. His smile is paper-thin. But servers are sentimental. They keep ghosts. Kill the ghosts, she says. He closes the folder. Retention policy is flexible. Flex it, she says, already turning. I'll keep him busy with donors. You keep her busy with rules. In the corridor outside, Ji-hoon stands with a paper cup of coffee that has gone cold while he listened. He looks at the cup like it could tell him what to do. He throws it away and goes to the maternal unit. Inside, Nurse Seon is checking a chart. "No tours," she says by way of greeting. "No tours," he agrees. "But there's talk." He lowers his voice. "About moving Ms. Lee. Today." Seon's jaw tightens. "For whose benefit?" "Not hers," he says. Yoon steps in behind him, catching only the tail of the sentence. "Then it's ours to stop," she says. "If there's no medical cause, I can file an emergency motion. Judges hate games with infants." Hannah is at the sink washing a bottle with the concentration of a surgeon. She looks up. "They're going to try to move us?" "Not if I can help it," Yoon says. "But if they do, we'll use it." Pattern of harassment. Interference with care. Hannah dries the bottle one square of cloth at a time. "I don't want to be a pattern. I want to be a person." "You are," Yoon says. And that's exactly what scares them. At the luncheon, silverware behaves like choreography. Laughter comes in controlled pores. Slides hum with numbers that promise a future without edges. Min-jae watches his mouth smile when it's supposed to. He waits for a moment of quiet and finds none. On the matter of optics, an investor says, leaning forward, "There was an incident this morning. Cameras caught you near the..." "I asked them to leave," he says. "That wing isn't a stage." The investor blinks, recalculates. "Of course." A pause. "But the Foundation's plan to support children of inmates is a strong lever for public approval. When will we announce?" "When it is support," he says, "and not a lever." Under the table, his phone lights. A message from an unknown number. "Found a backup. 11B ties to Hanseong Builder's shell. Can you confirm access logs today? K." He looks up, finds Owne watching him. She is still the way a predator is still before it moves. He stands. "Excuse me." In the hall, the air is less curated. He calls the number. A woman answers on the first ring, voice hushed. "Mr. Park? I'm Kwon, public defender. You're Ms. Lee's case. How did you get my..." "Doesn't matter," she says. "Your IT archived a snapshot from before the upgrades. If we can authenticate, we can show deletion intent. We need logs, access, keys." "I can try," he says, already turning toward the admin stairwell. "Try fast," she says. "They'll try faster." He hangs up and almost collides with Kong. The director smiles, all teeth. "Going somewhere, Mr. Park?" "Server room," he says easily. "Just checking the heartbeat." "Tech will be thrilled," Kong says, walking with him as if invited. "We like to keep the heart steady." They arrive at a door that asks for a card and a finger. Kong offers his to the scanner. The door clicks. Inside, the sound is a breathy, constant hush. Machines sleep with their eyes open. Min-jae steps to the console. "I need access logs for last quarter," he says, forcing his voice into casual. "And retention settings before the upgrade." Kang's smile holds. "Of course." He gestures to the tech. "Pull what the CEO requests." The tech's fingers tremble. A violinist about to play the wrong piece on purpose. "Some older logs are purged," he says, "in accordance with policy." "What policy?" Min-jae asks. Kong answers before the man can. "The one you signed." He looks at the screen, then at Kong. "Pull what remains." The tech nods, relief and dread wrestling in his eyes. Data blossoms on the monitor. Dates, user IDs, a string of numbers that is both fact and story. He doesn't understand all of it. He understands enough. "Copy to a secure drive," he says. "Now." Kang's tone is still pleasant. "We don't export logs without legal." "Then call legal," he says, the impatience crisp as cold air. "And put my name on the request." Kong studies him as if measuring a cut of cloth. "As you wish." Later, in the elevator, he and Owne ride down without speaking. The mirrored walls fold them into versions of themselves he doesn't recognize. At last she says, "Whatever you think you're doing, you're not the only one who can play savior." "I'm not trying to be a savior," he says. I'm trying to be a person. She laughs, the sound clean and sharp. People are inefficient. The doors open. Reporters turn their heads. Flash. A question hurled like a stone. Mr. Park, is it true your company penalizes the city for empty beds? He should say, legal will answer. He should say, no comment. He hears himself say, we're reviewing all our contracts. The room inhales. Cameras lean closer, hungry. Beside him, Owne smiles the way a pilot smiles at turbulence. What he means, she says, is that we constantly evaluate to improve outcomes. He looks at her, then past her, toward the corridor that knows his real name. Somewhere behind one more door, 3 small chests rise and fall, counting time the way truth counts. Steady, unbothered by applause. The room is small and square, not quite kind. 2 chairs, a bolted table with rounded corners, a camera that blinks like a patient animal. Somewhere down the hall, a lullaby plays from a plastic speaker, the tinny loop the unit uses at nap time. It makes the silence here sound more deliberate. Hannah enters first because that's the rule. She sits with her back to the wall, the way people do when they've learned to count exits. She lays her palms flat on the table and doesn't look at the mirror in the door. She knows better than to talk to glass. He comes in a breath later. The door closes behind him with a soft sound that still feels like a verdict. He takes the chair opposite and doesn't let his hands wander. For a moment, nothing happens, unless you count the way his throat moves like it remembers water. Thank you, he says, and you can hear the habit in him of making gratitude an opening move. For seeing me. I didn't do it for you, she says, calm as a ledger. Owne said I should let you speak. So speak. He nods. The camera blinks. He sees the red light and forces his face to remember its training. I saw you through the glass. He begins and stops. The truth sounds too small when it arrives. I'm here to ask what you need. An attorney with teeth, a judge with a spine, a pediatric cardiologist on time, she says without heat. After that, a job, an apartment with a door that locks from the inside only, and a place for a stroller that isn't under a fluorescent light. He swallows. I can. You can what? Her eyes don't rise above his collarbone. She won't let herself drown in a look. Write a check? Put a logo on a charity? The price of my name isn't a donation. It's a trial. I know, he says, and for once he sounds like he does. I've requested access logs. There may be records that help. I'll give them to your counsel. Not to me, she says. To the court. Chain of custody. Clean. Clean, he repeats. And the word tastes like something he hasn't eaten in a while. The lullaby down the hall drifts into its chorus. The room inhales and exhales with it. He looks at her hands, flat and steady on the table. He remembers those hands holding a receipt and laughing at how his signature slanted like a runner. He remembers them at a window, making 2 mugs of instant coffee taste like a decision. I didn't know, he says, and the apology comes out ungilded. You didn't look, she says, but softer than before. There's a difference. He nods once as if accepting a sentence. I'm looking now. Good. Look harder. She leans back enough to see the camera in the corner. I'm not going to cry for you. I didn't come for that, he says. I came because there are questions He stops, chooses a version of himself with fewer edges. There are questions we have to answer in front of a judge. One of them is about the boys. About who their father is, she says, and sets the words between them like a bowl that might break. Yes, he hates the way the syllable sounds, like stealing. The answer doesn't change what they need, she says. Feedings, sleep, a world that doesn't use them as a marketing deck. I know, he says, but the court will ask. I can request a test. Not today, not here. Through the hospital with the right forms, a chain of custody, she finishes. You like that phrase today. It's the only way truth survives rooms like this, he says. Hannah studies his face, looking for the gears. You can request, she says. I won't let your lawyers ambush me with a swab between bottle feeds. We do it with dignity or not at all. Dignity. He echoes, and a small, strange relief passes through his eyes, as if she has let him hold a word he thought he'd lost. Thank you. I'm not doing you favors, she says, but the sentence lands with less iron. I'm protecting them from your timing. A soft knock at the door. Ji-hoon opens it a hand's width. 5 minutes, he says, eyes apologizing for the clock he can't unmake. Hannah lifts her chin, turns back to Min-jae. You have 4.5, she says. Use them. He leans forward, but not far enough to shadow her. Why didn't you? He stops himself before the question he no longer deserves. What do you want me to say when the press asks about you? Nothing, she says. Say nothing. If you say my name, it becomes yours, and I don't need that kind of theft. They already asked about the contract penalties, he says, almost to himself. I told them we're reviewing. Are you? She asks. Yes, he says. I don't know how to unbuild a machine while it's running, but I can slow it, strip parts, show the rust. Rust cuts, she says. Wear gloves. He almost smiles. It doesn't reach his mouth. It shows up in the way his shoulders notice they can move. You still turn knives into instruction. You still think instructions can save you, she returns, without cruelty. He reaches into his jacket slowly, as if any quick motion might turn into a mistake. He sets a small, flat folder on the table and slides it across the rounded edge. Draft request to the hospital for a DNA test, he says. Blank where your signature goes. Yoon will review it. I won't file it without her approval. Hannah doesn't touch it. She lets it sit like an offering she'll evaluate later, on her terms. Good, she says. He looks at the folder like it contains a map out of a burning room. I brought something else, he says, and the risk in his voice makes the camera blink feel louder. He reaches into the other pocket and takes out a photo, printed not on a screen. It's a picture of a houseplant on a windowsill somewhere high, leaves glossy like they've been spoken to. You bought this plant 3 years ago, he says, and the memory surprises both of them by arriving intact. We named it after the coffee place because it kept trying to die and then didn't. She stares at it until the paper becomes a story. Why did you bring that? Because numbers tell one kind of truth, he says, and this tells another. It's healthy. I kept it alive. He swallows. I thought you should know I can keep something alive. She doesn't move for a long, exact second. Then she breathes and the air shifts. Don't bring plants to a prison, she says. But her voice has a hairline fracture you could miss if you weren't listening with everything in you. Bring proof. He nods, folds the photo back into his pocket as if returning a fragile animal to a dark pocket. Proof, he repeats. 3 minutes. Ji-hoon calls gently from the door. You said you can get logs, Hannah says, redirecting them both to the thing that counts. Get the ones that show deletions. Get the list of vendor 11B. Get emails with my name redacted and then unredacted. Give it to the court. Not to me, not to the press, not to your father. To the court. I will, he says. I promise. Promises are free, she says. Bring receipts. He nods. Receipts. A beat of quiet. He looks at her hands again. The word love hovers in a tense it doesn't deserve. He chooses a different verb. I remember. I don't live there, she says, not unkind. I live here, with bottles that don't wash themselves and a clock that doesn't care what you meant to do. I can help with the clock, he says. I can. You can stop your people from moving us today, she says. Kong is circling like a vulture who studied etiquette. If we're observed in medical this afternoon, it will be because someone wants me off the grid during your luncheon. His jaw tightens, the first clean anger you've seen on him since morning. I'll make it clear, he says. No movement without a doctor's order. And not a doctor who answers to a board, she adds. Done, he says, and for once you believe the word might carry weight out of this room. The lullaby ends mid-phrase. The room feels more honest without it. 1 minute, Ji-hoon says softly. Hannah stands first. The chair legs barely whisper against the floor. She looks at him the way you look at a road you used to take before you learned where it led. Don't come back with cameras, she says. Don't come back with mercy dressed as marketing. If you come back with something a judge can hold. I will, he says, and his voice has lost its polish in a way that might finally make it strong. She reaches toward the folder, then stops. She doesn't take it. She taps it once, a gavel made of bone and intention. If the test says what you want it to say, she says, eyes steady, you don't get to own them, you get to learn them. He nods, and the nod is not performance. I'll learn, he says. Class starts with listening, she says, and turns to the door. He watches her leave with the focus of a person watching a rope bridge sway, grateful for every step that finds wood instead of air. The door opens. Ji-hoon holds it, meets his eyes, and something passes between them that isn't alliance and isn't hostility. It's a contract built from witness. Director asked if I wanted a transfer to admin. Ji-hoon says quietly, as if speaking to the air. I said I prefer hallways. Hallways matter, Min-jae says. Ji-hoon nods once. So do locks. The door closes. The camera blinks. He sits one more second, letting the room be what it is, and then stands. When he steps into the corridor, the world presses in again. Questions, schedules, the sound of money sniffing the air. He straightens his shoulders and goes looking for Kang with a new word in his mouth that feels like a tool and a test at once. Kang's smile lifts, professional and unbothered. Of course, patient safety is our first priority. Good, Min-jae says, and turns down the empty stairwell because he needs a place where lights don't applaud. The metal handrail is cold. His palm remembers the glass and, uninvited, the past begins to unspool. Not as a montage, but as a ledger line by line. Last autumn, a Monday that smelled like rain on concrete. Hannah at their kitchen table, sleeves shoved up, laptop open, the blue of the screen deep enough to drown in. I can't make this add up, she said, tapping the cell on a spreadsheet. Vendor 11 be billed for 640 hours on a week with 312 hours in it. If it's a typo, it's an expensive one. Send it to audit, he said, kissing the crown of her head as if that could count as attention. His phone vibrated with a Singapore number. They'll clean it. Numbers don't need cleaning, she said, eyes still on the screen. They need daylight. Tuesday, early. Conference room glass and coffee that tasted like ambition. Owne SEO slid a folder across the table. Nails immaculate, smile easy. Security upgrade proposal, she said. Centralized permissions, better encryption. We should roll it out before the next RFP. He flipped pages he didn't read. Cost. It pays for itself in reduced noise, she said, an almost laugh around the word. Fewer people touching sensitive files. Efficiency is grace. Do it, he said, and signed his name in a box that would later look like a trapdoor. Wednesday night, their living room. The plant by the window pretending to thrive because she spoke to it. Hannah closed her laptop and looked at him the way you look at a cliff you might jump from. I sent the 11B report to audit and legal, she said. Someone asked me to run the payment anyway, just this once. No second signature. Who? She hesitated. Her assistant. On her authority. He looked at the ceiling. It's a low 6-figure transfer against a 9-figure budget. Don't turn it into a crusade. She stared at him, very quiet. A number is a person wearing a mask, she said. If I say yes to it today, I can't say no tomorrow. Then say no tomorrow, he said, already late in 3 different time zones. The stairwell smells like dust and something metallic. He blinks back to now, then back again because the past has decided it isn't finished. Thursday, noon. A glass office where the city skyline leaned like an accomplice. Owne SEO stood at the window, her reflection crisp, voice low. We're about to close the Hanseong contract, she said. We can't have audits cluttering the runway. I need you focused on the win, not on the crumbs. They're not crumbs, he said. Everything is crumbs at altitude, she said, stepping closer. Sign the upgrade. We'll quarantine the noise. You'll thank me when the mayor shakes your hand and the board stops questioning your instincts. I don't want instincts, he said. I want facts. Instinct is how you choose which facts to protect, she murmured. It's how you built this. He signed the change order that would shorten retention windows and funnel admin rights through a smaller gate. He told himself it was hygiene, not anesthesia. Friday morning, security turned Hannah away at the foundation's glass door with a smile that had been trained to be sympathetic. Badge isn't reading, the guard said, and the scanner beeped like a lie telling you it was busy. She called him. He was boarding a flight to Zurich to shore up sentiment. He saw the call. He let it ring. I'll call her from the lounge, he told himself, and then, I'll call her when we land. A rainstorm rerouted the flight. The lounge turned into a long hallway with no doors. Friday afternoon. A call from legal, brisk as a winter wind. We've had a breach, they said. An internal bad actor. We're cooperating. Who? He asked, which meant why her? Your girlfriend's accountant, someone joked later, behind a closed door. He didn't laugh. He didn't correct them. He stared at his phone until it became the only thing in the room that felt like proof of anything. That night, the plant by the window drank in the dark without him. He signed a midnight memo authorizing transitional controls and temporary removals. He told himself he was stabilizing an aircraft. He told himself the turbulence would pass if the pilot looked confident. The stairwell door opens on the administrative floor. He steps out and the present snaps back on like an unforgiving light. He goes straight to IT because the only kindness left today is a fact that refuses to die. Pull what you can, he tells the tech from earlier, voice steady now. Access logs, deletion flags, the snapshot before the upgrade. Tag every instance of 11B. The tech glances at Kang's empty chair and then at him. If I do this, it's traceable. I'll sign for it, he says. You'll be covered. Covered by what? The tech asks, small and brave. At once. By the truth, he says. And here's how flimsy that can sound in a building full of glass. And by my name. The kid nods. He's click. Ghosts wake. A window fills with dates. User IDs bloom like weeds. He prints. He signs. He pockets a drive that feels heavier than metal should. As he turns to leave, his phone vibrates. Unknown again. He answers. Quan, I've got 5 minutes with a clerk before they disappear to lunch, she says. If you can give me anything that shows pattern, we can get a same-day filing. I have logs, he says, and something else. He looks at the printouts at a signature beside a purge order, his own stamped by a policy that wore his face. A mistake with my name on it. Bring the mistake, Quan says. Mistakes make good evidence when they're honest. He cuts through the corridor toward family services, then stops because the hallway tile remembers a conversation he can't stop seeing. A week before the arrest. Late. Office lights off except for hers. Hannah sat with a stack of invoices in her lap. A highlighter uncapped because caps are for people who trust endings. Stay for dinner, he said from the door, leaning, trying to make casual look like care. We ate an hour ago, she said without looking up. You weren't there. I'm here now, he offered, feeling small in a big suit. You're here to be seen here, she said, finally meeting his eyes. There's a difference. He crossed the room. Don't do this with me tonight. I'm not, she said softly. I'm doing this with numbers that refuse to behave. You make everything into a math problem when feelings would do, he snapped, and immediately felt the meanness of it. She capped the highlighter. Feelings don't audit vendors. Feelings keep you home, he said, which was not what he meant. He meant, stay safe. He meant, I'm afraid of how this ends. He meant, I can't see the ground. She stood, the quiet kind of angry. I'm already home when I'm with the truth, she said. That's why I keep chasing it even when it runs. Back to now. He breathes and keeps going. In the maternal infant unit, Ji-hoon stands centered like a hinge that refuses to fail. No movement ordered, he says before Min-jae can ask. The nurse logged vitals as stable. I logged 3 attempted checks by admin. They left when I stayed. Thank you, Min-jae says, and it lands like a weight he means to carry. Yoon appears, cardigan a banner. The hearing is set, she says, then lowers her voice. They'll try a custody play in the court of public opinion before they try it in the actual one. We need something that makes a judge frown at them, not at us. He holds up the folder, the drive. Logs, flags, picture of my mistake. Kwon is ready to file. Yoon's eyebrows climb, impressed despite herself. You moved fast. I moved late, he says. Fast is all I have left. Through the glass, Hannah is feeding Min-jun upright, the way Seon taught, counting his breaths between swallows. She doesn't look up when he approaches. He doesn't press the intercom. He places his palm lightly on the glass. Not a knock, just a presence. And she flicks her eyes once, acknowledging without inviting. He speaks to Yoon instead. If we file today, can we keep them here through the hearing? It strengthens our argument, she says. Pattern of interference. Retaliation risk. A judge who has ever met a newborn will understand. Do it, he says. Seon steps out with a chart. His murmur is quieter, she says, unable to keep the hope from her voice. Because she holds him like the world is in her hands, he says before he can help it. Seon studies him, measuring if that line is performance or truth. Keep admin off my floor, she says. Do that, and maybe we'll all survive the day. He nods. His phone rings, father again. He silences it. It rings again. He turns it face down. At the end of the hall, a camera leans, hungry. Ji-hoon lifts a hand and it remembers its manners. He tucks the drive inside his jacket like a heartbeat. Yoon, he says, let's go make a judge frown. As they walk, the building hums with the kind of quiet that breaks into storms. In the elevator, he finally answers his father because you can't run from weather forever. You're late to the board call, the old man says. Explain. I'll be later, he says. I'm going to court. To do what? The word is disdain folded into silk. To tell the truth, he says, and the simplicity of it shakes something loose in his chest. To fix a mistake I signed. You think virtue will reopen factories and keep donors warm? His father asks, amused. You were raised for steel. Steel bends, he says, watching the floor numbers climb. That's how bridges live. He ends the call. The elevator opens to daylight that doesn't feel like mercy. Yoon walks fast, a metronome for courage. He matches her step. In the lobby, a reporter fires a question like a flare. Mr. Park, are you interfering in an ongoing case? He stops just long enough to place his voice where the truth can stand. I'm cooperating, he says, and I'm correcting. What does that mean? Another shouts. It means, he says, we'll see you in court. Pattern and prejudice, Kwon says, sliding a stack forward. Interference with care. We ask for a protective order to keep mother and infants in place until hearing, and we ask for an order authorizing DNA testing under hospital chain of custody. The clerk stamps like a heartbeat. A bailiff calls a name that isn't theirs. You feel the day tilt. 15 minutes later, they stand before a judge with a tired kindness around the eyes. I will not play custody chess with newborns, the judge says. Protective order granted. As for DNA, you'll use the university hospital's lab. Court officer supervises. No private kits. Results sealed until the hearing. Everyone understands. Yes, Your Honor, Yoon says. Kwon adds. And no movement of the infants without a physician's note and notice to counsel. So, ordered. The judge says. The gavel is small and final. Outside, the air tastes like victory diluted with fear. Min-jae exhales as if he hadn't since morning. Thank you, he tells Yoon and Kwon. Don't thank me yet, Kwon says. Now we enforce it. They hurry back. The lobby is a lens factory. Director Kong greets them with a smile that would pass any inspection. Everything all right? He asks, gaze sliding to the envelope in Yoon's hand. Better than all right, Yoon says, handing him the orders. You'll comply. We always comply, he says, eyes failing to blink. Then you'll prepare a room, Kwon adds. Private. Clean. We'll need the mother, the infants, and Mr. Park for buccal swabs. Hospital technician en route. Court officer present. Kang's smile tightens. Today may be difficult. Our partner lab. We're not using your partner lab. Yoon cuts in. University hospital only. Court order. If you obstruct, the judge will enjoy hearing why. Kang glances at the camera in the ceiling corner, then back at the paper in his hand. We'll accommodate. You'll do better. Ji-hoon says from behind them, unexpected and immovable. You'll cooperate. Kang's eyes flicker, he moves aside. Nurse Seon will prepare the unit. In the maternal wing, Seon is already setting a tray. Sterile swabs, labeled evidence envelopes, tamper-proof seals. The court officer signs the chain of custody log with a pen that looks like a weapon turned into a tool. Hannah watches from the crib, still as a drawn bow. We're doing this? She asks, voice steady. We're doing this right, Yoon says. Hospital tech is 5 minutes away. Court officer stays. You set your boundaries. Hannah nods. No photos. No unloved hands. No swabs until after feeding windows. We won't stress them for anyone's convenience. She looks at Min-jae without softening. You swab first. I will, he says. He sounds like a vow he intends to keep. Uniseo appears at the door with a smile she must have ironed. What a complicated day, she says lightly. I brought a kit to save time. No, Kwon says, not loud, somehow final. Court kit only. Uniseo pouts to the room. We're all on the same side. Some of us are on the record, Yoon replies. A pediatric resident from the hospital arrives. Cheeks pink from the run, credentials swinging. Dr. Lim, she introduces herself, breath recovering as fast as her professionalism. We'll swab the alleged father first, then mother, then the infants. No blood needed, just epithelial cells. We'll avoid feeding windows to minimize aspiration risk. Who's the court officer? A woman with a crisp bun raises her hand. Officer Han. I'll witness and transport. Everyone signs across the seals. Hannah exhales, some tension loosening its teeth. Thank you, she tells Dr. Lim. We wait 10 minutes after feeds, and we do Min-jun last. Her hand covers the smallest chest automatically. He tires easily. Noted, Dr. Lim says, eyes kind, notes exact. Kang hovers near the frame, wearing patience like a borrowed coat. Do you require admin present? We require admin elsewhere, Officer Han says without looking at him. Too many bodies make mistakes. Kang smiles and doesn't move. Ji-hoon does. Director, he says, tone polite as a locked door. Letting the court officer breathe is good policy. Kang leaves a fraction too slow. They begin. A form is read aloud. Yoon points to each line, explaining. Consent to testing. Results sealed until court opens them. This does not determine custody. It determines fact. Hannah reads every word like a person who's learned what words can do when left unattended. She signs. Her hand doesn't shake. Mr. Park, Officer Han says. He steps forward. The swab feels like humility, not pain. Dr. Lim rolls it along his inner cheek with the calm of routine. He thinks of the plant on the sill, of Friday phone calls he didn't take, of the way truth is a door that sometimes asks for skin. Sample A, Dr. Lim says. She places the swab into its tube, caps, labels. Officer Han seals it, signs across the tape. Yoon and Kwon countersign. The log fills with names that mean they were there. Hannah goes next. She opens her mouth like a person about to speak the one sentence that changes everything. The swab is quick. Sample B. Seal, sign, log. The babies wake one by one, as if to take turns with the present. Seon cradles the first, murmuring nothing, words that mean everything. We'll be gentle, Dr. Lim says. Just a quick cheek rub. He can keep his pacifier. The room holds its breath. The swab touches a tiny mouth. The baby frowns, then forgets. Sample C. Seal, sign, log. Soo-jun protests, then sucks on a knuckle like a referee calling his own game. Sample D. Seal sign log. Minjun is last, per Hannah's rule. She positions him upright, 2 fingers splayed along his back, counting silently. We wait 30 seconds after this breath, she says. Now. Dr. Lim swabs like someone touching a prayer. The baby stares, solemn and surprised, then settles. Sample E. Seal sign log. A small silence fills the room, like the space between thunder and rain. Something important has happened and refused to be dramatic about it. Transport, Officer Han says, lifting the evidence pouch like it might sing. She checks each seal, then checks them again. I leave now for the hospital. Straight there. No stops. Director Kong, you'll sign that you witnessed departure with seals intact. Kong materializes on cue, signing a line as if it absolves him. He looks at the pouch the way a man looks at a fuse. And Director, Yoon adds, handing him a copy of the protective order. Any deviation from this order, any observation transfers, any interference with medical schedules, will be brought to the judge within the hour. Of course, he says. He could be quoting a menu. Officer Han leaves with the samples, the pouch and argument with feet. The door closes. The room exhales. Thank you, Hannah tells Dr. Lim. The gratitude is precise, not general. For treating them like patients, not evidence. They're both, Dr. Lim says softly, but the patient comes first. Unesio lingers in the hall, calculating angles. Now that we've ensured paternity, she says, the foundation can prepare a package of support. A nanny, formulas, perhaps a safer environment while Ms. Lee resolves. Paternity ensures nothing except biology, Yoon says. Don't get ahead of the court. Min Jae turns to Hannah, words searching for a door. If the results, if, she says, and the syllable is a gate. You don't get to own them with a swab. You get to show up with something harder. Time. Changes. Proof. I will, he says. You'll try, she corrects. Trying is a start. His phone buzzes so insistently it's practically a vibration in his bones. He glances father, then legal, then father again. He puts the phone face down on the counter like a gambler reclaiming his hands. Kwan checks her watch. I'll follow the courier, she says. If a traffic light even blinks wrong, I'll document it. Yoon, I'll file notice of compliance and the protective order, Yoon says. Then I'll call the judge's clerk to confirm receipt. Do that, Kwan says, already moving. When they're gone, the room feels smaller, more honest. Sian adjusts a blanket. Jihoon writes the time on the log. Kang's shadow passes and repasses in the frosted glass like a storm that can't decide where to rain. May I? Min Jae begins and gestures at the intercom. Hannah presses the button. Speak. I'm sorry it had to be like this, he says, which is not enough and not nothing. I'm sorry I made it like this. She doesn't sigh. She holds his gaze the way a person holds a line steady while someone else crosses a river. Then don't make the next thing worse, she says. It's easy to do when you're afraid. That's when people sign bad papers. He almost smiles at the grim humor chewing on him. I won't sign anything I wouldn't want read out loud in court. Good, she says. Start with your board. He nods. I have a call with them. You had one, she says. Now you have a choice. He looks through the glass at 3 sleeping faces, one frowning like he's solving something. I'm going to the boardroom, he says, and then to legal, and then back here. Bring documents, she says. Not apologies. I know, he says, and the words feel like the first brick in a road that might hold. As he turns to go, Unisio steps into his path, her voice sugar and knives. You've given the day a story, she says. Be careful who writes the ending. He steps past and you can feel the shift, small, seismic. The ending isn't yours, he says without looking back. It isn't mine either. It's going to have witnesses. He leaves. In the unit, Nurse Sian dims the lights to afternoon. Hannah sits, the baby's warmed by her body, and stares at the door where Truth just walked out wearing a suit and a deadline. The samples are already on a road between buildings. The results are already on their way to a judge's sealed box. Between now and then, there is only what people do. In the corridor, Kong studies the camera feed, jaw set. Mute ambient audio, he tells the tech. Court order says we can't. The tech replies, surprising himself with courage. Kang's smile returns without teeth. Find a way to comply aloud and obstruct quietly. Yoon straightens a stack of motions. We speak to stability, medical need, and the protective order, she tells Hannah. We don't take bait. Kwon arrives with a sealed receipt from the hospital lab. Chain of custody intact, she says. Results pending, sealed. Hannah nods once, palms flat on her skirt, as if she could iron the day smooth with touch alone. Across the hall, Director Kong confers with a woman in a navy suit carrying a portfolio embossed with the Foundation's crest. You recognize her from articles. Ryu Sojin, counsel for the philanthropic arm that buys sympathy like stock. 2 seats away, a caseworker from child welfare, Na Hai-won, clutches a tablet, eyes clear and tired, and then Min-jae steps from the elevator, tie straight, jaw set, as if he rehearsed not the statements but the silences. Unesio is at his shoulder, whispering, We offer a transitional package, neutral tone. You're a concerned father, not a defendant. He doesn't answer. He's looking at the door like it's a test. Lee versus Department, custody review, infants. The clerk calls. Inside, the courtroom is small, the kind that measures power by how close everyone has to sit. Judge Bae adjusts her glasses, takes them off, decides to trust her eyes. Appearances. Yoon Mi-rae for Ms. Lee, Yoon says. Kwon Hanul, public defender, co-counsel. Kwon adds, Na Hai-won for child welfare, says the caseworker, voice firm. Ryu Sojin for Hanseong Foundation as proposed guardian ad litem. The navy suit says smoothly, Kong Dae-sik, director of Hanseong Correctional Center. Kong offers. There's a beat. Then, Park Min-jae interested party, he says. You can hear the word father unsaid, loud as a bell. Judge Bae glances at the clock. All right, I've read the filings. Protective order in place, DNA underway. We are here on interim placement. Whether the infants remain in the maternal infant unit with their mother, or whether removal to foster or alternative care serves best interest. She turns to Na. Report. Na stands, tablet held like a careful argument. Infants are 3 weeks old. One with a soft systolic murmur under evaluation. Mother demonstrates appropriate care. Feeding logs consistent. Weight gain adequate. Hygiene and bonding observed. Facility has a designated maternal unit with medical staff. Risk factors. Institutional setting. Pending criminal case. Mitigating factors. Court order limiting movement. On-site pediatric oversight. Documented attempted interference by facility admin, which raises concern about removal as a tactic rather than a necessity. Ryu stands when Na sits. Your Honor, the Foundation can place the infants in a licensed residential nursery today. Round-the-clock pediatric nurses, developmental specialists, a safe environment removed from the stressors of incarceration. Ms. Lee may visit daily under supervision. This reduces institutional trauma and protects the newborns from their mother. Yoon asks, not moving from her chair. Ryu smiles like a scalpel. From instability. Ms. Lee is pending trial for fraud involving the very facility claiming to protect her. Removing pressure serves everyone. Kong folds his hands. We have limited capacity. Media attention strains security. We would welcome relief that maintains safety. Kwon rises. Relief for whom? We have sworn statements that Director Kong attempted to move Ms. Lee yesterday without a medical reason. Contemporaneous notes by Officer Shin Ji-hoon, and a nurse prepared to testify that such movement would have jeopardized a child with a heart concern. This looks less like relief and more like leverage. Judge Bae lifts a hand. I'll hear the nurse. Nurse Seon steps up, her badge catching the light like proof. Min-jun tires with feeds, she says. He needs upright positioning and consistent monitoring. The unit provides that. A transfer now would interrupt routines we've built in days that matter more than most days will. The mother is competent and attentive. The environment is controlled. The risk comes from non-clinical interference, not from the mother. Ryu pivots. Even with competence, the optics? Ms. Ryu, the judge says dryly, I sentence facts, not optics. Unesio leans into Minjae's shoulder. We can propose dual placement. Foundation nursery with mother transferred as helper. Elegant. He stands. Your Honor, may I be heard briefly? Yoon's head snaps toward him. For a heartbeat, you can't tell if she will wave him down. She doesn't. Judge Bae nods. 2 minutes. He faces the bench, then forces himself to turn toward Hannah, as if his words need her witness to be true. I built pieces of the system that brought us here, he says, voice steady, stripped. That's not an argument. It's context. I've seen the maternal unit. I've seen Ms. Lee with the infants. They are stable with her. If this court's concern is best interest, my position, he swallows, is that they remain with their mother in the unit under oversight until the next hearing. I will not support removal to our foundation's program. Unesio's fingers freeze on his sleeve. A muscle ticks in Kang's jaw. Ryu's pen stops moving, then starts again faster. Yoon rises into the opening he just gave. Your Honor, the law favors continuity in the neonatal period unless harm is shown. Harm has not been shown. Help has. We submit Officer Shin's log. Ji-hoon approaches the stand with the quiet of someone who would rather be anywhere else and knows he must be here. 3 times yesterday admin attempted to observe Ms. Lee in medical. No doctor's order. I logged each attempt. When I stayed, they left. Why did you stay? Kwon asks. Because policy, he says, and then because this is one of those rooms where answers need bone. And because it was right. Ryu's cross is gentle and precise. Officer Shin, is it true that the facility is at 32% occupancy and expects to reach 60%? Would increased population complicate care? Ji-hoon doesn't flinch. Population complicates everything. It doesn't justify breaking rules. Thank you, Judge Bae says. Ms. Lee, would you like to speak? Hannah stands. Her hands don't shake. Her throat might. I'm not asking for mercy, she says. I'm asking for sense. I feed my sons every 3 hours. I count breaths. I learned to hold a baby and file a motion in the same morning. Moving them now is not safety. It's story. They are not a story. They are people who need the same arms every day for a while. Ryu angles her head. Ms. Lee, do you deny that you are charged with diverting funds meant for? I deny committing what they charged me with. Hannah says, even not defensive. I flagged numbers that didn't add. Then the numbers swallowed me. Judge Bae lifts a palm. We are not trying the criminal case today. We are placing infants. She looks down at her notes, then up at all of them, the way a person looks at a chessboard and decides to teach the pieces how to be human. Here is what I find. The infants are stable with their mother in a specialized unit staffed to meet their current medical needs. Removal would disrupt feeding, bonding, and monitoring without a showing of immediate harm. Therefore, they remain with Ms. Lee in the maternal infant unit. The protective order remains. No movement absent physician's note and notice to counsel. No media. No third-party programming or visitation initiated by non-governmental entities without court permission. Ryu's mouth opens, closes. Your Honor, the Foundation only sought to help. Judge Bae finishes. Help by funding the on-site pediatric consults and formula supply if you're so inclined. I'll enter that as a suggestion. There is a ripple of something like laughter. Then the room remembers itself. And Mr. Park, the judge adds, you will have supervised visitation in the unit at hours that do not disrupt care, subject to Ms. Lee's medical schedule. You will not bring cameras, publicists, or bouquets. You will bring ID. Yes, Your Honor, he says, and it sounds like relief made legal. Ms. Na, Judge Bae continues, I want weekly reports on the unit's compliance and any attempted interference. If I see games, I will issue contempt faster than anyone can schedule a press conference. We reconvene in 2 weeks or earlier on motion. That's the order. The gavel taps. Simple wood. Loud world. Outside, microphones bloom. Mr. Park. Ms. Lee. Director. Not today, Yoon says, steering Hannah toward the side exit like a tide working around rocks. Owne steps in front of Min Jae, smile intact, eyes sharp. You just alienated your father, your board, and your donors in under 2 minutes. He breathes. You told me to stay on script, he says. The court wrote a better one. We'll write our own, she murmurs. You can still pivot. Not from this, he says and walks. Kong makes a call as he descends the steps, voice pitched low. Yes, the court tied our hands. No, I'll find another way. Quietly, Ji-hoon hears it and writes a time in his little notebook. Back at the unit, Nurse Seon has placed a warm blanket over an empty crib space, a small mercy waiting for their return. Hannah sits on the edge of the bed when the door closes behind her and lets one breath shudder out of her like a building releasing heat. They stay, Yoon says gently. They stay, Hannah repeats, the words both cradle and command. Min Jae appears in the glass, a shadow that chooses not to enter. He presses the intercom. I'll come back at 6, he says, after the feed, with nothing but ID. Good, Hannah says. Bring ears. I will, he says. Seon, Hannah says, and the name is a flare. Nurse Seon is already moving. Pulse oximeter. Tiny cuff. The monitor blinks. Hunting. 94. 91. 88. The numbers fall like beads slipping off a string. Okay, baby, Seon murmurs, calm built like scaffolding. Hannah, hold him upright. Good. Count with me. 1, 2, 3. Hannah's voice doesn't shake. Her hands don't either. Inside them, everything shakes. The monitor pings, insistent. 86. Seon reaches for the oxygen. Nasal cannula, size that looks like it should belong to a doll. We're going to give you a cloud, she tells him, slipping the tubes with a gentleness that could teach books. Ji-hoon. He's at the door before she finishes his name. Call Dr. Lim, Seon says. Stat page pediatrics. And tell Kong transport may be needed medical order. Ji-hoon's radio crackles. On it. He's gone and back, breathing like he ran only enough to be fast, not enough to scare anyone. Resident en route. Kong says, observe and update. Of course he does, Seon mutters, turning the flow. The number ticks up. 89. 90 hovers. Dips. Stay with me, little one. Hannah strokes the tiny sternum, counting in time with the fast, shallow breaths. He's sweaty, she says. He's never. It's okay to say scared, Seon says, eyes on the chest, stethoscope warm. You're allowed. I don't have time for allowed, Hannah says, and kisses the damp hair. Dr. Lim arrives with a resident's speed and a senior's precision, cheeks flushed from the run. Stethoscope, light, fingers pressing the soft spot above the sternum. Increased work of breathing, she says. Murmur louder. He needs an echo and a full workup at the university hospital. The monitor chirps again. 86, 85. Lim's voice tightens without rising. Oxygen to 0.5 liters, she tells Seon. Call neonatal transport, not facility transport. I want the hospital team with the isolette. Court order allows movement on physician note. Use it. Seon nods. Already drafting. She looks at Hannah. We're going to the hospital. You're coming. Hannah nods once. I'm bringing him. Kong appears like a storm choosing a window. What's happening? The smile is gone. Efficiency stands where charm was. Acute respiratory distress, Lim says, writing as she speaks. Likely cardiac. He needs NICU-level care. I'm ordering transfer now. Kang's gaze skates to the protective order on the clipboard. The court prohibited movement without notice. This is the notice, Yoon says, appearing in the doorway as if worry built her out of air. Physician note. Court officer has authority. Call Officer Han to escort. Kong calculates out loud. Security needs 3 hours to arrange escort. No, Lim says, and the no is iron. He needs to leave in 30 minutes. Call neonatal transport. Policy states, policy will be read to the judge when she asks why a baby desaturated while you checked boxes. Owne says, call the team. Ji-hoon is already on the radio with dispatch. University Hospital Neonatal Transport, priority. Judicial escort to meet them at Gate 2. Officer Han notified. The monitor dips. 83. Lim leans in. Hannah, can you hear him grunting? Hannah nods. It's a sound like a tiny engine trying to start. That's him recruiting every muscle to breathe. Lim says, voice steady but close. You're holding him right. Keep him upright. Talk to him. I'm here. Hannah whispers, mouth near his temple. I'm not leaving. Hear me? I'm not leaving. Min-jae walks into the unit at 5:07, early for once in his life. He stops when he sees the numbers, sees Hannah's face, sees Seon's hands moving like the room's metronome. What happened? He asks, already at the glass. NICU transfer, Owne says. Kong tried to recite a policy. We're doing medicine instead. He fumbles for the intercom. Hannah? Not now, she says without looking up. It isn't cruel. It's triage. Kong steps in with 2 officers trailing. We'll need restraints for the inmate during transport, he says, and in the same breath, media at the south gate is increasing. No restraints, Dr. Lim says, not turning. Medical necessity. She must hold him. Officer supervision is enough. I'll sign it. Facility policy, Kong tries again. State statute. Owne cuts in, paper like a knife. No restraints on postpartum inmates during medical transport, absent flight, or violence risk. You want to argue she'll run while holding a hypoxic neonate? Please, on the record. Kang's jaw tightens. He nods at one officer, who looks relieved to do nothing cruel today. Officer Han arrives, presence like a clear bell. Court order in hand, she says to the room. Transport authorized. I ride with mother and infant. Mr. Park, you follow in your vehicle. Do not obstruct. I won't, he says. He sounds like a person who finally knows where to put his hands. A distant siren threads the air. Seon checks the tape on the cannula, the fit of the blanket. Hannah, your bag, she says. I have it, Hannah says. It's under the bed, diapers, wipes, a notebook with the Defender's clipped note, the smallest hat in the world. The neonatal team bursts in with the weather around them. A warmed isolette, portable monitor, the solemn efficiency of people who carry new lives like glass. We're Team Blue, the leader says. Who's Mom? He sees and doesn't waste time. We're going to secure his airway with oxygen and transport. If he tires more, we'll assist breathing. Mom rides. Officer, you ride too. Do it, Lim says. I'm sending my note and calling ahead to NICU. They transfer him. The cannula becomes a tiny mask. The monitor hooks into a smaller version that sings the same relentless song. 87, 90, 88. He frowns like he's solving a hard problem. Name? The transport nurse asks, already writing. Min-jun, Hannah says. Min-jun, we've got you. The nurse says, and tapes the corner of the tiny mask with a tenderness that is almost indecent. It's so intimate. Kong steps toward the door. The south gate is blocked by press. Then we leave it north, Officer Han says. We don't slow for cameras. Security protocol. Contempt of court. Owne replies, smiling like a person who enjoys the right fight. The team rolls. The hallway stretches and snaps. The elevator opens as if it has been waiting all day to be useful. In the cab, Hannah stands beside the isolette, one hand through the porthole, 2 fingers on the little back. Breathe with me, she whispers. In, out. She breathes slow enough for 2. Min-jae steps into the elevator, then steps back because there are only so many bodies the air can carry. The doors close on his face. He takes the stairs 2 at a time, breath burning. He is a man in a suit running because running is the only verb that feels honest. The ambulance bay smells like rubber and weather. The team clicks the isolette in. Officer Han helps Hannah up without touching her. Respect like a bridge. Seatbelt, Han says. One hand in, the other on the rail. If we break, let the belt do its job. Hannah nods. eyes on the small chest. "I'm here," she says again and again, like the words are oxygen too. The doors slam. The siren rises. Through the rear window, Min-jae appears at a sprint, then falls into his car. He calls legal. "Authorize whatever the hospital needs under my personal guarantee," he says. "No foundation logos, no statements, just pay the bill." "Sir, the board isn't in this ambulance," he says and ends the call. Back in the unit, Seon stands with the stillness that comes after motion. Ji-hoon writes the time. Kang watches the empty space and makes a new plan with his eyes. The city parts for the siren like a crowd that remembers how to care. Inside the ambulance, the monitor keeps its stubborn little song. The transport nurse watches the numbers in Hannah's hand and makes a decision. "We'll start a line," she says. "Tiny one, just in case he needs meds." Hannah nods, jaw set. "Do it." They prick a heel, tape a thread of a catheter. The baby flinches, then sighs as if the world is large and also survivable. 3 minutes out, the driver calls. "NICU is ready." Dr. Lim's voice comes through the radio. Echo team standing by. They arrive. Doors open into white light that doesn't pretend to be anything else. NICU doors part. The team flows like a single organism. A pediatric cardiologist meets them, hands already gloved, eyes already reading the child. "We'll take it from here," she says to Hannah, kind but firm, because certain rooms require a line no one likes. "I'm coming in," Hannah says. 2 minutes to settle him, then you come," the doctor says. "I promise." Hannah looks at Officer Han. Han nods, checks with the nurse in charge. 2 minutes, she repeats. "I'll time it." The isolette rolls through. The doors seal. Hannah stands with her palm on the glass, as if the building will misbehave if it doesn't feel her. Min-jae arrives a breath later, face flushed, tie crooked, looking suddenly very young. He stops at the line on the floor and doesn't cross it. "Tell me," he asks Yoon, who is already caught up. "Tell me we did it right." "You did something right today," Yoon says. "We'll do the next right thing in 2 minutes." He presses his hand to the glass near Hannah's. She doesn't move it away. They stand like that, witnesses to a door between worlds. Inside, a cardiology team maps a tiny heart with sound. Outside, a mother and a man learn how long a minute actually is when it holds your whole life. Behind them, down the hall, a courier walks past with a sealed envelope from a lab across town. Results that will make one truth sharper and leave 100 others to be told. The envelope turns a corner and disappears. The monitor inside the small ventricular septal defect. The cardiologist says, voice level. A hole between lower chambers. Common. Most close on their own. The murmur and work of breathing match. We'll support him, watch him closely. If his oxygen dips or he tires, we'll assist. For now, no feeds by mouth until we clear aspiration risk. We'll place a small tube if needed. Hannah nods, eyes on the rhythm that is his and also Arun's. "I'm here," she whispers, fingers through the porthole, two resting on the tiny spine. "I'm here." Min-jae stands at the threshold and chooses not to cross. "If you need anything," he begins. "Documents," she says without looking back. "You know the list." He exhales. "I'm on it." Back at the unit, the room with 2 cribs feels wrong, like a sentence missing a word. Soo-joon fusses, searching for his third. Nurse Seon hums low. "We keep his rhythm in the room," she tells the air. "We keep it steady." Kang arrives with 2 officers and a checklist. "Post-transport safety inventory," he says. "Standard." Inventory doesn't include slicing open comfort items. Seon replies, arms folded over a chart. "Standard. We verify nothing harmful is concealed," Kang says mildly, eyes already skimming. "Policy permits inspection." Ji-hoon steps between them, posture courteous as a locked door. "Court order."